We are shows what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, well, watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.
Welcome to Castle Rock, just another sleepy small town here in the wonderful state of Maine, which supposedly has more coastline than any other place in the world. Castle Rock, yes, it's a great place to visit. You're now entering Castle Rock. There's nothing weird or strange going on at all. I am Jim Scampoli.
I'm Jacob Burrows. Don't mind the spooks. Don't mind the monsters. Don't mind the sharks in the water, because it's going to be a nice Maine vacation. No issues here at all. We're here to discuss the first episodes of Castle Rock. If you've never met us before, we do a television podcast called Shows What You Know, where we discuss all manner of shows. And Castle Rock, you were on this from the start, Jim. You've known about this show since before I knew about it. That doesn't say much. I'm not always on top of things. But what was your first introduction to this show? What made you go, hell yeah, let's start a podcast?
Well, it just sounds interesting. I'd heard a while back that J.J. Abrams had thrown his hat in the ring as far as a producer's concerned to get a show going in the Stephen King universe or the multiverse, depending on who you talk to. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm all about spooky shit. Let's get the spooks going because I'm ready to be spooked out of my mind.
Yeah, so famously, I'm not as much about the spooks, which sounds bad when you say it like that, but I'm not so much into the horror aspect, but I am, you know, Stephen King is not just horror. It's got those fantastical elements. It's larger than life, and he is a versatile writer. I'm not like a super fan or anything, but I read some of his books, and I watched a fair few adaptations, like we all have, you know, even without realizing. It was just an embarrassingly short amount of time ago that I realized, Shawshank Redemption, Stephen King wrote that? Okay, cool. Like, I just watched that, like, I don't know, 15 years ago. Didn't realize until very, very recently. But yeah, he's got his finger in all the pies. He's just an amazing, incredibly productive writer who makes so much that he just forces culture to adapt to him. And with it coming out last year, I think that must have influenced in some way this show happening because it was such a big success.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of that. Also Stranger Things, because Stranger Things in general, I mean, not a Stephen King adaptation per se, but clearly highly influenced by it. And yeah, I mean, my history with Stephen King, I'm not maybe I shouldn't be saying this in a show where we're discussing a Stephen King multiverse. I'm not like a huge fan. I mean, I've gone back and forth. When I was a kid, I was huge into Stephen King, like when I was in school, because my dad really liked Stephen King. So, you know, I read It, I read The Green Mile, I read Dolores Claiborne, I believe the Tommy Knockers, a few other books. And of course, I've watched all the adaptations. Always been a medium to super fan, I'd say, depending on the season. Yeah. But I thought it was a cool idea with the show. But the thing with something like this is that you're dealing with a few things that can get very tricky. You're walking a tightrope, if you will, because not only are you doing a television mystery, which, as we learned from things like Westworld, television mysteries are at one time a giving tree and at one time a taking tree, I guess. You can either, you know, be wowed and, you know, mystified and go on quite a journey, or you can go on a journey that really ends in like with a shit sandwich, if you will.
Yeah, I feel there are even worse examples than Westworld. I know it's the hip one. Everyone hates Westworld now. We have a podcast called Westworld Theories. We still like Westworld, but yeah, it's a good example. Shows like, I don't know, Lost Legion. It's another one, but yeah, it's very Fargo-esque as well. We should mention, like, it's it feels like it's influenced by it because it is like, let's do a pastiche of all this stuff from this like filmmaking, or in this case author writing universe, and it seems like it shouldn't work, but Fargo showed that it can work. So I guess that's why we're sort of, I don't know, tentatively positive before having watched anything at all.
Well, because that's why I'm saying there's a few things going on, because even if you don't have the weight of you know, people checking in because they're fans of Stephen King and they want to, you know, be in this universe and pick up references or what have you. Just mystery in general. If you're just doing a mystery television show, which I assume something like this, if they continue, it would be more of an anthology. Although I thought that was Stranger Things and I was proven wrong. So who knows?
Yeah.
But with a mystery, that's very tough to do, because even more so than a mystery movie where, you know, you're putting in 2 hours and you might be let down by the outcome. A television show, I don't know how many episodes this show is going to be yet. I assume it'd be anywhere from 8 to 12. That's usually like a Hulu / on demand / cable television show episode order. So now you're investing 8 to 10 hours or whatever. So when things kind of don't come out in a satisfying conclusion, that could be a letdown. And then
it's sorry to cut you off. It's just twice that when you're doing a podcast. Just mentioning that as well. We're putting all our money on Castle Rock right now because we just started one.
And then then you're adding the extra baggage of the Stephen King multiverse and expectations that can be brought along with that. And we'll just see. I mean, and then and also, since it's supposed to be, it's not quite horror, but you know, it is kind of supposed to be a little spooky. So you kind of want to deliver on that and just kind of grab the audience. Now, I can say, and I don't want this to come up the wrong way, but I don't feel like this show's grabbed me yet. I'm not saying bad or that I'm out or anything like that. I just feel like it's leaving me a bit, especially 3 episodes in. I feel like I should be hooked a little bit more, because I feel like even if you go to something like Stranger Things, I feel like in the first episode I was hooked. I was there.
Yeah.
Say what you will about where things went or how that first season ended, or if you dug the second season. I think in the beginning they just had a great hook that just brought you right in. This show, I'm still kind of there. I just feel like with 3 episodes, it should have been a bit more of a pull.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, I think there's a clear reason they put out 3 episodes at once, because if you watch these week to week, you'd feel like, what is happening? At the end of watching 3 in a row, I felt more positive than at the start, if that makes sense, because it does reveal things, relatively speaking, very slowly. And the stuff they do reveal is interesting and it's fun, but it is also totally true what you said. They don't have a super clear hook, because Stranger Things, the hook is this boy goes missing, and he goes to a weird parallel world, and that's about that. It's a mystery. We're gonna solve it. It's very straightforward. And Castle Rock is anything but straightforward, because you have Bill Skarsgård, who's appeared in a prison. That's like the big hook. That's what everyone said. Like, that's what's in the trailer. Like, a guy who just appeared in this prison. But we pretty clearly early find out that he's just been locked up there by this weirdo, and he's supposedly the devil. We'll get into that. But like, that's it. So it's like, what's the mystery? Like, yeah, it's like they keep the mystery so vague, because it's like, we who know what's going on in this town, no one can ever find out the stuff we do for the town. It's like, yeah, okay, we get it.
And there's kind of stacking mysteries, which doesn't add to each one, because they kind of take away from each mystery in a weird way. Because yes, we have Bill Skarsgård, who was up in the prison, or like why he was being held in the prison. But then we also have the mystery of Henry Deaver and what happened to him and what happened to his father. I mean, I guess we kind of know what happened to his father, but I still don't know the specifics on how he got to where he was at. And then we have Molly, who has like empath powers, like empath psychic powers, which is right in line with like Stephen King. You know, that's something he uses in his stories. But it's also funny, because if this was a show and we weren't like thinking like, okay, this is the world of Stephen King, and you just had a character all of a sudden that was talking about how they had empath powers, it would seem like it would be a bigger deal and you'd want to explain it a bit more. But in this, just like, she just has powers, clearly.
Yeah, well, I say it's gonna be all connected because it's all about Castle Rock, man. It's there in the title. We're all affected by whatever this weird Castle Rock thing is. But yeah, I did feel like she would be the main character in any other show, but here it's just kind of like, well, it's Stephen King, so we gotta have an empath in there. But I also like that because another show I compared this to in my mind is Outcast. Which is not a super widely watched show, I think, but we discussed the whole first season on Shows What You Know, showswhatyouknow.com, and the mystery there was completely tied into ghosts, and there were ghosts, and they possessed people, and it was like, what are the rules of the ghosts? And I was like, I don't care, they're ghosts, we get it, like, you gotta get them out of the possessed people. But here it's like there's more stuff going on because I don't care that much about ghosts. So, and I also don't care like when there's a slow build-up scene of early on of a guard going into the prison, the burned out prison, and it's like we know we're gonna find Bill Skarsgård because that's in the trailer. Like there's so much that we can assume in a show where it's all about ghosts, and in this show, yeah, there's a lot we can assume, but there's also like more going on that I'm interested in finding out about, and finding out that she has empath powers was like that made her character way better because before then she was just a weirdo who took drugs, and I think they did an interesting thing of introducing her as a weirdo who takes drugs and then like no this is why, and it's like you did it the other way around because you want to make them sympathetic first and then go the other way, but you went the other way.
Yeah, I agree, and I also agree with what you were saying earlier about releasing these episodes together, because yes, if it took 3 weeks to get here, that would be a bit more to ask in a season, in a show that's its first season, where you don't already have like the good faith of maybe it being like the second or third season where you already kind of know this show has quality. And again, I'm not saying like that this takes away from the show. It's just a very different experience, because I do feel like at this point, the information we have gotten for 3 episodes, you could have maybe done it in 2, or you could have maybe even done it in a much flashier, slicker pilot, I would say.
Yeah, or if they cut some of the stuff out, because like you said, they're stacking different stuff on top of each other, and I feel like it's all going to be connected. But then you could have even connected it up in a more elegant way, maybe. But then I'm not complaining because actually we watch a lot of shows on Shows What You Know. Sometimes it's toil to get through, to be honest with you. Like, oh shit, I gotta watch 3 episodes of this by Sunday. And here it was really like, oh yeah, got another one and another one and another one. And I was like, oh cool. I didn't mind watching any of this at all.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's just kind of thinking about it, going over it. But again, not knowing where it's going, it's hard to say, but it does feel like things are a little bit slow, but that could be for the benefit by the end, by the time we get to the end. But I mean, we don't have to go beat by beat of every episode, but we can go a little bit more detail here about some of the things that are going on, like we had mentioned. Well, I mean, I guess even before we get to the prisoner, in 1991, Henry Deaver went missing. We kind of open up with Sheriff Pangborn, which is character, a Stephen King character, I believe is in Needful Things, and he was Castle Rock's sheriff, so everything's kind of in canon, in line with that. He does find Henry out on the ice, and he brings him home, and then we pick up with Terry O'Quinn, who's playing in modern days here, playing the Warden of Shawshank, and he has a very creative way to kill himself by just driving off a cliff with a noose tied to a tree so his head gets ripped off. And I don't know, he sees a big shaggy dog and maybe has a second thoughts on it, but decides to go through it anyways.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where you see the beauty of life and nature, and then you go ahead anyway. Usually they'd have a change of heart, but no, that was just a dog, so the dog could come up later and eat his face. Great stuff. There is a lot of imagery with dead animals. Not surprising since it's Stephen King, but like almost the first thing in the show is like a dead deer, like the sheriff finds when he's looking for the kid, and then so many dead animals throughout, like a dead mouse in the prison, and I even lost count. But yeah, there's a fair few. It is interesting. Like that is a good hook. But we also get the solution to that hook really quickly of like, because he seemed fine. He was making breakfast for his wife, and then he did this. That's like a good hook. But then like, they even make the theory very quickly, like some weird he locked up a kid. Like that's probably why, right? And it's like, yeah, that's why. So it's not really a mystery. I mean, it's a mystery why he did it, but we get that in the next episode. I'm jumping ahead, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We can kind of jump around a bit here. Yeah, because I mean, I do like the because yeah, in the second episode, we're hearing Terry O'Quinn's voiceover, and it's so hard not to disconnect him from Lost, and because not, I mean, this is a J.J. Abrams produced show. There's a lot of mysteries going on, and now you get Terry O'Quinn doing his mysterious voiceover, and it's hard not to have Lost flashbacks. But I do like that. I mean, he's on this mission from God. Basically, what he's telling us is that
Yeah.
he's been told, like, he's realized this town is evil. There's all these crazy things happening. Of course, the rabid dog, Cujo, people, come on. There's headlines about it. Terry O'Quinn's talking about it.
Right.
Do you get it yet? Cujo. He also mentions the Strangler. I didn't get that one offhand. I'm sure someone did. I believe I double checked. Someone mentioned the Dead Zone. And of course, he does mention it was the 1961, the year after they found the body by the train tracks. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That I did get that one now that you mentioned it, but I will say, like, so much of this is over my head. Like, so much of it is like, and again, having consumed a fair bit of Stephen King media, it's still like the dog, the Strangler. Like, I just assume this is all stuff in universe, and when or it is, but you know what I mean, like stuff they made up that will be important. But it feels like they mention stuff like it's gonna come up later, but then it's just like a reference a little bit, like the dog or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's from there. And I thought, oh, that's going to come up later. But then they don't need to do that. They just need to drop the name, I guess.
Yeah, they just a name drop. And because, I mean, and as we go through his letter, we find out that Sheriff Pangborn's the one who's reading it, and he's kind of tasked him with his, chore of making sure this boy doesn't get out. But I do like that he said, I didn't realize the doubt I would have because...
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, God's telling me to lock this child up? What am I doing? I mean, and it's also very reminiscent, and I don't believe it's it's not a Stephen King thing. What the hell was that movie? God damn it. I got to pull it up real quick.
Not The Room.
Frailty, by the late, great Bill Paxton directed it and starred in it, and it's very similar because he's a dad who is being spoken to by God, and God's telling him what people are demons and who to go kill. And also he's giving him instructions on how to build, he like builds basically like a cell or something to keep people in. So very similar to what we're seeing here, because he gets the instructions on how to build this. They call it like a bear cage in some cases to lock up Nick Cage, Nick at Night. I did like that because I was like, I didn't know what to call this dude in my notes. I would just call him Devil Boy, but now I can call him Nick.
Well, I just call him Bill because we're old friends. I mean, I'm Swedish, in case you didn't know, listeners. You probably did by now. I talk about it every episode. But the Skarsgård, they really are like much like a Stephen King. They appear in every media. Like, they've got a finger in every pie you got going. Like Westworld, we mentioned, they're in Westworld. They're in Vikings. They're in everything, every show, True Blood, whatever. They're everywhere. And Bill is the younger one, and of course he's in it. But actually, the first time I saw him, he was playing an autistic boy in a movie called Simple Simon. Although in Swedish it's called I rymden finns inga känslor, which means there are no emotions in space. And it's a quirky film. It's one of those quirky films. So he was already from the start playing kind of a guy who stares off into the distance and doesn't understand what's going on around him. But he's flipped it from being quirky comedy guy to horror, and I think he really found his true calling here because he's got those eyes, man. He's got that face, and that's what we get into at this point in the episode. They find him and they're like, what the fuck, basically.
Yeah, and he could do a thing where he moves one of his eyes without moving the other eye or something like that. I know he does it in It. He kind of does it in the first episode when they're like checking him out. I do wish that there was more to this character over these 3 episodes. I mean, he's creepy, of course. I mean, he's nailing that. He looks creepy. He's a weirdo. And I mean, we get that flash where the guard kind of sees on the TV that he's killed the other guards and broken out of his cell, but it's all a ruse apparently.
Yeah.
And that's the only other thing too that this show does is so far most of the chilling things have just been fake outs.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was kind of bullshit, especially the way it was at the end of the episode, and then next episode it was like that wasn't real. And at least at the end of episode 3, where there's another one of those, they show at the same they show at the end of the episode. Oh no, that guy wasn't really there. So they don't because when they hold it off between episodes, it's like really a fake cliffhanger kind of. And but I can't blame them because they did release the episodes at once. But yeah, I did also expect like when that was happening, it was like cool, things are getting going, and then 3 episodes in, he's still just in prison. He hasn't done much.
And his big thing is he doesn't really say anything, which is fine. I mean, he's playing everything close to the vest, but I wonder what. Not that I need it all spelled out to me what's going on, but give him a little bit more to do. I mean, apparently he gave a Nazi cancer somehow through his powers. But I kind of expected maybe something a little bit more there. I mean, I know you can't give it all away in these first few episodes. You got to leave wanting more, and I guess that's working because I'm saying I want more. But I feel like this Skarsgård, there's potential there. He's a creepy dude.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I also hope he does more this season than what we've seen him do here, because he is a good actor. He's not just good at sitting and looking at stuff weirdly and creepily. So I mean, theory time. Like, if we want to generalize, the obvious thing to guess is like, I don't know, there's some shit going on in this town that gives some kids superpowers, and at some point, the warden got convinced that was devil superpowers, so he did give that Nazi cancer, so it was like something pointed him out, and then you had to lock him up, but of course, Molly is also someone with these weird powers. Maybe more of them will appear, and connect that to the fact that so many people are offing themselves or offing each other. It's got to be something like that, right? And then probably himself, when he's hearing God, that's probably some other weird devil power or whatever coming into it. I mean, it's probably not God going out on a limb.
Yeah, and especially because even though Bill Skarsgård is creepy, I mean, even the person he killed, they go out of their way to make sure we know he's a Nazi guy, so he's not technically evil yet. And he's very well most likely a victim of circumstance, and the warden was actually being controlled by some sort of evil power. And it's not so much that this character is, and you're right, like it ties in somewhat with what's going on with Molly and of course Henry, because they do show that. I mean, Henry disappeared in 1991. He was gone for 11 days. And then his dad died in the same time frame, and they kind of blamed him for it. But they also show that when the warden is building the cage, there's a TV on for no reason other than to show us that the George Bush is on TV to put it at 1991. Like I mean, I already got it from just seeing it, but I did double check, and some other places had pointed out like it's specifically when George Bush was announcing increasing forces or something in the Middle East for the Gulf War, and that was in 1991. So the timeline does match up, and of course Henry is going to be connected to this character in some way. So yeah, you're right, something to do with these kids. And I mean, I guess they at the beginning of episode 2, we do see the warden's brother as the mascot jumps off the school. And then they don't really go much past that besides of just like, look at this creepy shit that happens here. But I assume it's going to have some sort of payoff. The stuff before that, where there's like someone dead in a tub, and then the woman who's riding her car with the tube like attached to the room, killing her husband, I presume. I mean, I don't know if those are just Stephen King references or important to our story here. I assume they're important to our story here. I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I just read it in, like, the way I understood it was, like, that's part of him saying, oh, we have the largest suicide rate ever, and everyone just thinks it's because it sucks to live here, but it's actually the devil. Like, that's basically what he's saying. I would be surprised if it was more like, oh, remember the car and the gas thing? I don't think that'll be the case, but who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Just setting up. I mean, there's a history here from this town, and I mean, and it's very reminiscent of the town the town of Derry. But that town was being controlled basically by by Pennywise. Is he would kind of almost like hypnotically take over the whole town in a weird way, where weird things could happen, and everyone just turns, a cold shoulder to it. They let kids go missing, and they let evil things happen in the town. And I do believe that they at one point there is a map of Maine, or maybe it's in the intro, and you do see the town of Derry, and I believe one of the other towns from the book. Now the thing with these things, like I keep pointing them out, and on one hand I do think it's cool, but on the other hand, if the show keeps being too slow, it starts to like reek of like, look at this, and not like Fargo season 1 and season 2. I haven't watched season 3 yet. There's all these little references, but then the show's awesome around it. So it adds to it rather than feels like, let's just reference all these better things and then kind of be done.
Yeah, and you mentioned the danger of mysteries, where I feel like the real danger for mysteries is the middle of the season, because you get it, like the ending could be a reveal, the beginning can be a setup, but like when you get into the middle, that's rough. And sometimes you have 2 episodes more than you need to have. Maybe that's, again, we keep coming back to it. Maybe it will really be helped by the fact that we're launched into this season already. We're 3 episodes in. Maybe episode 4 is where stuff really starts to happen. Who knows? And they decided partly because of that. But yes, mysteries are kind of hard like that, because it will just be a lot of waffling in the middle sometimes, and the huge payoff at the end helps people forget the middle bit.
Yeah.
So I agree. I also hope that we get a bit more concrete motion as far as the plot in the next few episodes.
And on one hand, if I could relate it to, I mean, we do another podcast called the Gilead Gazette, where we discuss Handmaid's Tale, another Hulu show. And not so much that, well, Handmaid's Tale definitely is somewhat of a slow burn, but it's more in a slow burn in the way it doles out hope. And I found that very effective. So I hope at the very least, the type of slow burn they do here, it's in service of things later on. And it, like, because again, I don't want it to come off as too negative, what I'm saying, because it can totally work, and it can help a payoff what they're doing, as long as it does feel like it's building to something, and not just, like you said, the middle of a mystery where it starts to feel like it's running in place a bit, because they don't want to get to the end yet because they have time to fill.
Yeah, but so if you want to guess, like, what would be the thing that would happen in the next few episodes, that could be something like that, because I feel I like it, all of it so far, but like you said, there isn't that clear of a hook. The hook is Bill is in prison, or Nick, whatever you want to call him, and our main character's got to get him out of there. And I love our main character. We haven't even gotten into it, but he's so likable. They do a good job with him, especially like his first thing about when he appears and he's doing the trial, and then his his client starts living again, and he runs in and tries to save her and everything. And he's probably not the best lawyer ever, because he does say at one point, all my clients are dead.
Yes. He points out that he's never won a case, and like he strictly deals in like death penalty, which I guess it's always going to be harder anyways if someone's already been convicted. But what a weird thing that he's never saved anyone, basically. So,
well, he's going to get his chance with good old Bill, I imagine. But yeah, they do a really good job with him, and seemingly the hook and the main plot is, are they gonna get him out of prison? And I don't care. Like, they will. It's just I would rather see it sooner than later, because that's gonna reveal what else is going on in this town. There's a lot of stuff going on in this town which seems weird and creepy, like the children playing the game with the masks. Like, really cool scene, really atmospheric, but it doesn't really mean anything, because it was really just there because they were playing a creepy game.
Yeah, in a weird way, those are the type of scenes that kind of worry me a bit for the show, because I remember seeing that in the trailer, and yeah, it's creepy, but is that all it is? Is that it's just, you know, a pill dealer messing around with kids that kids that have absentee parents, like their parents are in jail or out drunk somewhere, so they just do a weird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would need something like that to amount to something more than just this is a cool visual. You know, those are the types of scenes that worry me a little bit. It's still an effective sequence because it plays into Molly's thing of, you know, it is nice they revealed pretty early that she just went over and unhooked his breathing tube and basically killed Henry's father. We assume because there's some sort of abuse going on. I mean, it's very apparent between her picking up his feelings and Henry making fists when his dad's there. The one thing I'm not fully clear on is when she sees Henry get picked up, is that his dad? Because I don't know if it's my facial blindness, but I wasn't able to fully connect on if that is just some other character we never met or if that's his dad that took him out in the woods.
I wasn't completely clear on that either, so I'm not sure. Because they showed it twice, I think, and I honestly don't know. I also think I mean, at least for the first episode, it feels so weird how this town is like, you killed your father. Like, when it's like, wait, what? Because that's not what we saw or were led to believe. But I guess it's just, this is that racism I keep hearing about. That I mean, basically, because it's like, oh, he took in this kid, and then either they blame him because he ran away, in quotes, because he doesn't remember. I mean, Britta lays it out for us. Britta is in this, and she lays it out. Yeah, yeah. So she's in.
Same actress.
It's not.
No, I thought it was at first too, but I looked it up.
Damn. Well, Britta's not in this. I still did the thing. That's so weird. It looks so much like her.
It does. It really does. It looks a lot like you're referring to Jackie Torrance, which I assume the Torrance family, that's The Shining. So I assume there's a reference there. But yeah, that's played by Jane Levy. She's in the movie Don't Breathe. And that's the main thing I know. I guess she was in the Twin Peaks revival, it looks like, going through some of the stuff she's in. But no, I thought the same thing. She does look like, if you're not familiar, people listening, Britta from Community, Gillian Jacobs. She looks a lot like her.
I'm really embarrassed right now when both their IMDb's. Oh, God. Okay, well, never mind. Okay, well, she does lay it out anyway that, like, yeah, you went missing and then your dad died, so of course you did it. That's what everyone thought, and you faked like you didn't remember anything. And
one thing that would make, I mean, obviously there's definitely a racism angle there too. But I also would, I mean, even stemming from it, it doesn't negate that angle, but it would make sense that the legend would change. Like at first it would just be like, oh, your father was out looking for you and he died and that's your fault. And then as the years pass, it turns into you lured him into the woods and you pushed him off a cliff. You know what I mean? I could totally see that's how it changes, because here we are, like 27 years later or whatever.
Isn't there some guy when he gets off the bus who's like, "Hey there, killer," or whatever though, and he's pretty old.
Oh yeah, just out of nowhere. yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Which is almost like some of that stuff almost is too silly because it's like so over the top. It's more Hitchcock than Stephen King almost.
Well, like, and that he would just immediately recognize that that's Henry Deaver, like not some random guy. Like you don't. If they've kind of spelled out that he's been away from the town for a long time, so it's not like, oh, this dude got off the bus. Oh, Henry's back in town. Hey there, killer.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, fake Britta does explain all that, so that made it a bit more clear for me. I guess it makes sense. But I will say overall, I mean, Molly and Henry, they're the heart of this show so far, because Bill isn't really a character. The warden and all the guards, they're not really anything. But their whole relationship, that feels so Stephen King as well, or that feels so Stranger Things when they were kids and she had psychic powers and everything. It's very Stephen King. So their relationship is the most interesting part.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's what I'm most interested in. Like I'm more interested in kind of diving deeper into the 11 days that Henry has lost, and kind of even young Molly as well. So like, yeah, let's just do Stranger Things for a little bit. then we'll check back in with present day. I mean, the warden too. The warden is like comically villainous, where it's like, this, all the red tape and bureaucracy. Let's hide this kid and let's get him murdered by a Nazi, so we don't have to deal with this. And I mean, I get it to a point, and I guess it does play into this town and how this town is crazy. But without like knowing anything about these characters, because even like she specifically is brand new to the job because the warden killed himself, and but she's immediately evil and like wants to, like hide it under the rug. That's just it's a bit much so fast.
It is true that it would be a public relations mess, but it's still like you can't just keep him in there forever. That's also not going to work. And yeah, they put him in to get killed, and then again, we already know what's going to happen. We know it's not going to go down that way. So yeah, he gets instant cancer apparently from touching him. And he does say, "You don't want to touch me." So he was right. But he did. But still, even with
I was just gonna say, yeah, I kind of forgot that detail where it's not necessarily like he purposefully even gave the Nazi cancer.
Yeah.
He just got it from touching him. Although I assume guards and stuff have been pulling him up out of seats and pushing him into cells and stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't
Yeah. We've seen that. So it could be, like the usual thing, it's tied to his psychic state where if he's super worried about something, it'll happen. But despite that, and despite, I don't know, every slow, tense scene, like at the end of episode 3, when Molly's walking around, these are the scenes that I'm not excited about in horror, when it's like slowly checking every room in a house, and then there's sort of a jump scare. And I'm so bored during these scenes because they feel like they're just padding stuff out. Sometimes it works, like the scene with the kids and everything, like stuff's happening there. But here it's real like check this room slowly, and then there's a scary thing, and then it wasn't real. I'm like fuck this, a little bit. But at this, I just wanted to say, all of that stuff aside, the tensest scene for me is when Molly's on local TV. Like, that's the one I get the most tense. And I'm like, what's going to happen with the revitalization of the city center? And more importantly, is she going to keep it together? And she doesn't. I'm so like, I really hope she succeeds at this. But no, she just drops some knowledge about this kid who's locked up.
And even more so, it's like I'm not even worried about like the revitalization of Castle Rock. Or even like her looking foolish on TV. I'm just worried because her sister was completely correct. Like she even puts her sunglasses on and stuff. And I do have to call out, like, it's such a great move. And I assume this has to have been done before, where the actress that plays Molly, let me see. I made a note of it, I think. What's her name? God damn it. Oh yeah, Melanie Linsky. But her sister is played by Allison Tolman, who was on Fargo season 1, by the way. But it's such a great casting to have them as sisters, because I always confuse the two when I see them in other stuff. I mean, very much similar. They should bring Britta in to play the sister of
Jackie is her name.
But I was just excited for the casting because actually, I'm pretty sure when I was watching the first episode, I was thinking that it was Allison Tolman in the show. And then Allison Tolman showed up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's not Allison Tolman, but they're sisters clearly. What a genius! What genius casting!"
So they just knew that you always confuse them, and they just they casted based on that.
They totally look like sisters. Come on now.
Yeah. So also towards the end of episode 3, they finally get to meet up, Henry and Bill, and sit with the phones. And he has this plan about, we're going to get you out of here. Then we're going to take this state for this town, whatever, for all they've got. And Bill's just like, has it begun? Another like sort of classic horror thing of just saying creepy shit. And I don't know, has it begun, Jim? Maybe.
Well, I mean, it's begun. He also says, "Do you hear it now?" And that's the same line he hears when he's a kid in the woods. He says, "Do you hear it?" when Molly's having her like flashes to what's going on.
Yeah, that's his dad saying it, let's assume. Like, do you hear it now? Because I'm not sure if the guy in the car was his dad, but that's what I thought, since his dad showed up dead and they were out in the woods together, maybe at some point when he vanished. So I assumed that, and his dad was also involved in this whole weirdo doing stuff about Castle Rock thing. So we brought him out there to, I don't know. It is a mystery, I guess, because I don't know what exactly is going on. But yeah, brought him out there to induct him into the Brotherhood of kidnapping kids and putting them in cages. And he didn't want anything to do with it, but he was gone for 11 days, and he did weirdly appear on the ice. So I don't know. There's got to be something going on, and clearly this whole mummy thing they have going is central because they put it on the hashtag, and it appears a couple of times here in episode 3. That guy with,
Oh yes, yeah. When they have
bandages.
the bandages, and then she has that dream or whatever where
Yeah.
she's in the church, and then like everyone has different bandages covering. And that was a very effective, creepy scene as well. And I remember the flashes in the trailer, so I dig that. And then there's something going on where is it a chess piece that he was holding, and then there's like a chess piece in the refrigerator.
Oh yeah.
Like
Okay. Yeah, that's what it was.
I don't know if it's a king or whatever piece, but yeah, he finds one in the fridge. And then I think when he was a kid, he was clutching it when they find him.
Yeah, Natasha in the chat says she stepped on that light bulb and that guy showed up and I yelled at and yelled at her and I jumped like an idiot. There's a weird thing with the sound in the show. Things are very quiet sometimes and then very loud. Yeah. I was turning up the volume and down constantly. Well, yeah.
And especially when Nick or Devil Boy's talking, because he's always going to be very light and low. So you're kind of like turning it up to hear what he's saying, and then a jump scare happens. So it's going to be like,
yeah, it's the old classic like internet 2001 strategy of just do something really low so you have to raise the volume. The guy with the bandages at the end of episode 3 when he shows up says, "Behold, I will tell you a mystery." So that also feels like he's not even necessarily like the devil or super evil. He's almost just like a personification of the show. That's basically what the show is still telling us after 3 episodes. Like, get ready for some mysterious shit, guys.
Get ready for. But yeah, I agree. It's basically Molly and Henry are. And I guess they should be the most interesting because it does feel like they're the leads of the show. And they're definitely a big part of keeping me on board because I do like their characters a lot. And we get to have these moments where, like, even when Henry first shows up, these are classic storytelling things, but it's still done well. When Henry first shows up and we're like, oh, cool, Henry and Molly, but she has to keep trying to tell him to go away. But then he keeps showing up and helping her, and she's trying to tell him to go away. But yeah, that's the push and pull. We love that on TV. Yeah. I almost wonder, it was weird because when he brings her to the TV show, Local Color, first of all, it makes no sense because she looks like shit and her clothes are ripped up, and it's like not a great idea to just rush down there. But I guess they get her a jacket and they put makeup on, and she ends up talking about what Henry's been thinking with this kid they have locked up, getting out to the media. But then in the scene after, he's like, yeah, I was second guessing going to the media, but I'm glad we did. So then I'm like, wait, did he know that she was going to do this somehow? I don't think he knew, obviously. It was just a weird line, though.
Oh, I didn't hear it that way. I just heard it as, like, I wouldn't have gone to the media, rather than, like, him. He didn't bring her there to do that.
I didn't think so either, but I just thought it was a clumsy line. Maybe I just misinterpreted the line. I was like, wait a minute, what? You're a mastermind now, Henry Deaver? I don't think so. You can't even get someone off death row. I do, going back a bit, kind of talking about the slow burn. I feel like it was effective in the point when we finally get to where Henry and Nick at Night sit down to meet at the jail. Not that it amounts to a ton, but it felt like a big moment, and I thought it was very effective that we got to this point.
Yeah.
You can say what you will, and if you feel like it should have been more to it once that happened, but it did feel like, oh shit, now they're talking. Like it felt like a big deal because, it was kind of a slow burn to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as the mystery as well, I will say there's been like a couple of reveals that aren't really reveals almost. Like at the end of episode 2, we see that the sheriff has been reading the letter all along. Like that was the voiceover for the episode.
Yep.
But way earlier in the episode, he goes to talk to the warden at the bar and says, "Don't let that fucking kid out."
Yep.
So we already know he's in cahoots with the warden, and then but the episode still ends with like, "And he was reading the letter." It's like, yeah, we know he's already on the same page.
Yeah, we know he knows something here, and it is weird that even like the dog like digging up the head. It's like I guess I know they said the head was missing,
Yeah.
but does it matter that his head's still in the woods somewhere? Like, all right, so what? His head's missing. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, and it almost like treats those moments like larger than they are. Similar, I think the first moment we see the warden like hammering away and building the cage. I don't recall exactly, but I think that was like that was almost made like, whoa, and he was involved with the kid. But that's been the assumption through the episode because he killed himself and then the kid was found. So we kind of already knew that.
Well, and plus, I mean, they mentioned something like there was a bucket full of cigarette butts or something. And I think they kind of even just show that he's like smoking cigarette. Oh, yeah, because, yeah, he's smoking cigarettes and he's like, ask for Henry Deaver. And he leaves. So it's like even then we already knew that he was involved with what's going on. What was the other thing? Oh, you know, the big mystery, though, on this show, I feel like that people are all glossing over is Henry missing toes. Because, you know, Jackie Torrance asks him, but wait, is it Jackie?
Yeah.
Oh, that's even more on the nose. It wasn't Jack Torrance, the fucking guy from The Shining. How am I now just putting that together? Yeah.
Here's Jackie.
I just was like, oh, Torrance. I knew it was the Torrance family. So all right, that's a little bit too much now. But anyways, he asked him about his toes, but I could have sworn when he got picked up, it's like, oh, the guy Sheriff Pangborn mentions, you know, the weather. It's like below 0, and here you are. You're like, you're fine.
Yeah.
So what is this? Just part of the old wives' tale that he's missing toes, or is he missing toes?
I think it's part of the wives' tale, the old wives' tale, because otherwise Molly would be limping around him, and she does not limp around him.
Oh, that's right, because she picks up his feelings.
Yeah. No, it's a good question, Jim. But I feel like they go out of their way to show that like he should have frozen to death if he was out here even for one night, and he was out there for 11 nights, and he just showed up. So I almost want to feel like some fucking aliens, man. There's aliens here because he almost got abducted.
Stephen King's gone the alien route a few times, so
yeah,
it's not out of the
past him. But we should probably have brought this up at the start, but I mean, Stephen King, he's not involved in this, right? At all?
I mean, he's credited as an executive producer, but I think they just have to do that because they're using his characters. From my understanding,
yeah.
I think he even tweeted something where they were asking about it, and he's like, your guess is as good as mine. Like, it's not like he's involved in the writing or anything like that.
Yeah, so we also have a podcast discussing Game of Thrones, everyone, at showswhatyouknowshow.com, and we talked about how at times, since they're going past the material of the source material in Game of Thrones, at times it comes off a bit like fan fiction because it technically is, and this is the most fan fiction that a show can be because it's a mashup. It's like someone said, like, I love all this Stephen King shit, let's like shake it up and put it together. If this was a book, it would be the worst book ever written. It's not, though, and it's not bad. Like, I'm just saying, all the things that they're doing and all the things of dropping references, they don't hold anything up on their own. It's a question of is it going to hold up as its own thing? It's almost despite, like it like you said, it has the weight of having to do a lot more almost because it put all this pressure on itself. If this was an original show like Stranger Things, like everyone loved season 1 of Stranger Things, and it was like so cool. They're doing Stephen King stuff, but it's an original thing. And here they can't really say that because they're literally doing Stephen King stuff. So it will be interesting to see how it lives up to that and whether it manages to deliver. I said at the start we were cautiously optimistic before watching it. I feel pretty much the same way after watching these first 3.
I agree. And I mean, I guess, does it, I mean, not quite settle the argument, but does it partially answer the question if we come out on the other end of this season 1 of Castle Rock, and whether we feel like it's a great success or left things to be desired. Because a lot of and then in comparison to something like Stranger Things, which is a similar thing because it totally is inspired and paying homage to Stephen King, but without adding some of the extra baggage of actually being in the universe or multiverse. Because a lot of people, that's the argument against a lot of reboots. It's like, okay, you don't reboot Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You can come up with something like in the same spirit, but make it your own.
Yeah.
So would it help answer this question? Because we have 2 shining examples now. I'm sure a lot of the Stranger Things, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that hate Stranger Things, and even us bringing it up, like, oh, you idiots, you infidels, how dare you? But I feel like, it'd be some good Exhibit A and Exhibit B for this type of argument.
No, I think that's a good point. And then, we'll know even more after season 2 of Castle Rock, because you get, I don't know, at the same time here, they really have had free reigns. It feels like it's not quite an adaptation or a reboot, really. So they're doing their own thing, which gives even more like, you really got to nail it this time, guys, because if you don't, everyone's gonna be mad at you. Like, if you don't nail it when it's your own show, nobody watches it. But if you don't nail it and it's someone else's material, oh, they're gonna get pissed. Look at Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I agree. It is kind of like, I mean, you get some extra shine and extra attention because you do have that hook. But yeah, that could be a gift you don't want in some cases, especially if you get some super fans that show up and they're not quite happy with what you're doing. Or maybe just the fact that you mentioned Cujo, the super fans like, this show's the greatest.
Yeah, well, just like the standard, of course, for me, and I'm sure probably you, like, everyone says we want more original stuff these days. We want more original material. But hey, if you're gonna do something like this, do something like this, because it is way more interesting than just making the It TV show. Well, I guess maybe that could be great too, actually. But just doing, like, the fact that I don't know what's gonna happen, that's almost what I value when it's not a reboot, when it's something original. Like, I don't know what to expect, and I can hope for the amazing. And if it's an adaptation or a reboot, it's like, then it's like, it's just got to live up to the previous thing, and it rarely does due to nostalgia.
And yeah, I mean, and it's, even though, the cynical side of me would scoff at this, it's still fun to be like, okay, we're going to Shawshank Prison. It's like, oh shit, that's great. Like, it's still kind of fun. So I get the want to do something like this. It's just, you can't let that do the heavy lifting. And the jury's still out. I don't feel like they're completely leaning on references yet, but there isn't enough evidence to say that they aren't either. But that's not a bad thing. We'll see how it pans out, and I'm excited to see where they go with it.
Yeah, but the real question here is, what do you think, dear listener? Why don't you send in your thoughts and we'll include them in our next episode? The email to do that is showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. That's showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. And of course, you can find all of our other podcasts at showswhatyouknow.com, or just search your iTunes or similar app for things like Gilead Gazette, where we discuss Handmaid's Tale, Westworld Theories, where we discuss Westworld, or just, hey, Shows What You Know, to get all of it in one feed.
Well, let's not forget the It's All Good Man podcast, your one-stop shop for Better Call Saul.
Good point. And then there's also jimandthem.com for more from Jim Scampoli, and awesomepedia.org for more from me. But yeah, so we've now entered Castle Rock. What are we going to do now, Jim?
Now leaving Castle Rock.